hashtag sports.
Ladies and gentlemen of Hashtag Nation, I mean, Buffalo Bills with a statement victory over the Seattle Seahawks, 44-34, to run their record to 7-2. I am extremely excited to be calling this post game with my co-host Paul, as you all know. Yeah, I just wanted to let you guys know that we are simulcasting this both on YouTube and Sportscaster, so make sure that you go check out Sportscaster as well. And also to let you guys know that you can find us on all social media. We're on Twitter and Instagram at #Sports. All of our streams will be going out to iTunes and Spotify as well. And one more thing to mention as far as the channel memberships go, the 29 of you, the 29 hashtag heroes that we have, 100% of all the channel memberships will be going to the Punt Foundation, Brian Moorman's Foundation for children with pediatric cancer. So you're donating to a great cause and you get some great content as well. So that being said, Paul, the Buffalo Bills hand the Seattle Seahawks a whooping today. Josh Allen has 7 incomplete passes and accounts for 4 touchdowns for the Buffalo Bills. Your initial impressions of the game against the Seahawks today?
Where the hell did AJ Klein come from? It's funny because it's almost like he was playing for his job. I don't know where he would have gotten that thought.
Darren Lee, yeah. Probably.
Yeah, probably. He's looking around. He's like, wow, a lot of new people in this room all of a sudden. AJ Klein, you know what it was? It was the fact that, first off, Tremaine Edmonds played a phenomenal game, right? This was the best game Tremaine Edmonds has played this year. He was locked down, but I think it was all the blitzes that they were able to do. They were able to put Klein in a role where Russell Wilson couldn't look at him and say, okay, don't have to worry about him because I know he's going to be in coverage. They were able to bring him in a lot of different looks that I don't think the Bills have really put out there before. AJ Klein was a very effective Lorenzo Alexander, right? That's what they asked him to do. And it's about time that he was able to come in and clean up, because that's been one of the issues with Klein was he was around a lot of plays, but never was able to seal any of them. And today he came up big, but the Bills, 4 turnovers. That's massive. 4 turnovers, but you only win by 10 points. Like, this was a lot closer game than I think it felt like to a lot of Bills fans, because while the Bills were in the driver's seat for most of the game, you only won by 10 and you had 4 turnovers and you scored points off of every one of those turnovers. So this game was a lot closer than it really looked.
Yeah. And, I decided to, Paul's like, should we go live at 4:45? And I'm like, no, push it back to 5 o'clock. I got a little research to do because today kind of struck me as odd. I mean, you talk about Russell Wilson, and a guy who's, prior to today, he was 92-42 in his career. A guy that's always taking care of the football. Either, he doesn't really fumble very much. I think his 2 seasons where he had the most fumbles, he fumbled 13 times and 14 times, but he didn't lose all of those. But only 2 seasons in his career. I had to go back to a 27-24 loss that Seattle had versus Denver in 2018, September of 2018, where Wilson had 4 turnovers. That was the only other game in his career in which he had 4 turnovers. So, like you said, winning by 10 points is great against Seattle, which is a high-powered offense. However, don't expect this to be the norm against a Russell Wilson. This guy, he takes care of the ball, and he does a lot of things. The way Frazier McDermott mixed up the defensive coverages, how they were able to bring pressure, odd man pressures off the right and left side, I thought it was great. They took a little bit page out of the Cardinals playbook as far as the double A gap blitzes. They were bringing guys up in the middle. I thought it was, Allen, 31-38 for 415, 7 rushes for 14 yards and another touchdown. If we just go through some of the preliminary stats, Diggs 9 for 118, Brown 8 for 99. Right. As we said it all year, you've echoed this many times, Paul. This offense is completely different with John Brown in the lineup and John Brown not in the lineup. And then you sprinkle in a little bit of that 6 for 70 for a touchdown with Gabe Davis, who probably should have had 2. He probably should have had 2 touchdowns. We'll get to the meat and potatoes of the episode, but you talk about Edmonds having 11 tackles today. He was flying all over the field. He had a sack. Poyer, I don't know if a lot of people know this, but Poyer coming into this game, he had 4 straight games with 10-plus tackles. He was tied with Jeremy Chin prior to today with the most tackles by a non-linebacker in the NFL. Chin was obviously injured. So Poyer ended up taking that role. He ended up having 10 tackles today, so his 5th straight game with 10 tackles. He's leading all non-linebackers with tackles today, which is something on your safety you don't really want, but we'll take it.
Right.
Should we?
Well,
go ahead.
I do want to point out that, to me, I can't wait to see the splits on this, right? So Pro Football Reference is going to have the splits on this game probably Tuesday is normally when they post all those stats. Maybe Monday, but normally not until Tuesday. I can't wait to see the splits on this game because the Bills ran the ball 19 times today, and I am very willing to guess that 14 of those came in the 4th quarter because the Bills had zero interest in running the football today.
No.
Like zero. Devin Singletary, his worst statistical rushing game that just off the top of my head that I know of, he averaged 0.5 yards carry today. He had 2 carries for 1 yard.
Yeah.
And his long was 2 yards. So he had 1 positive rushing attempt today. 1. Like his worst day running the football, but the Bills had no interest in running the football until the 4th.
Why would you? I mean,
Right.
It seemed like it was just laid out for the Buffalo Bills today as far as you're facing a team that's giving up 360 yards through the air. Why would you even bother to try to run the ball? Right. Everybody was worried about Carlos Dunlap and Jamal Adams coming into this game. Jamal Adams proved to you that he is not a safety. He is a undersized linebacker. That's what he is, because he can come off the edge, he can blitz, he can stop the run, he can do all those things. He just can't cover anybody. He really can't. And the Jets, it looks like they fleeced the Seattle in that respect. So, Mario Dan called it Thursday. What, the shootout? I think he had something in the 50s though. John, I don't know about that, but hey, I had a lot of people laughing at me, Paul, this week on the shows that I did. I did on the Cold Front Report, and I did with Dan. I said that Allen was going to outthrow Wilson today. I thought he was going to.
He certainly did.
He definitely did for 415. But
sure did.
That notwithstanding, obviously, we try to take an objective approach here, and obviously, everyone's high off the win. We're high off the win. The Buffalo Bills run the record to 7-2. The Seattle Seahawks fall to 6-2. Bills seem to be executing game plans that they have going against specific teams, and that's what the EP system is. You're game specific with your calls. They run the ball forever against the New England Patriots last week. Today they're throwing the ball over the yard, and Allen had a lot of time, even though 4 or 5 lineup changes in front of him. Who's the one cogged in there that is your stabilizing force in Mongo, who every week I love watching that guy play. But a little bit of a scare near the end of the game, Paul. Hyde looked like he, on that DK Metcalf touchdown, looked like he killed your boy Jackson.
Yeah, Micah Hyde giving him his breast, Brian Campbell versus Umberger. Like I thought I saw somebody die because Hyde hip checked Dane Jackson in the head. You know, oh well, it happens. Like you got to put a hat on Metcalf. Like in the goal lines, he's just so dominant. He's such a physical wide receiver.
Yes.
And I thought it was fascinating how the Bills were attacking Metcalf because it wasn't man up with Trey all day.
No.
They put Wallace on him. They were putting Trey on. They were mixing up their coverages on him. But what I found most fascinating was the Bills were bringing a lot of blitzes, and that meant they had to play man a lot. And we were worried about Tyler Lockett in zone situations, right? But Lockett was pretty quiet today. It was the DK Metcalf show for the most part. But I think that was just because when they looked and they saw DK on Levi Wallace, they're like, okay, well, there's our matchup, right? Like, okay, that's what we were looking for.
Yeah. He was. I love the fact that Sierra Neal, and it was mentioned in the chat, Sierra Neal, John Herring actually put it in the chat. I love like one of the first 2 or 3 drives of the game for Seattle. Sierra Neal was just right in Metcalf's face. You know, listen, my only job is to get you off your route to start because we're bringing pressure behind it. And I know I got a guy over top of me and Hyde and Poyer taking care of that. So I'm not going to worry about that. I just got to worry about getting you off your route and upset the timing of Wilson. And that's what he did. And I thought it was great. I was extremely impressed with the defensive philosophy that they decided to go into this game because they knew with you got Homer and Dallas back there, which sounds like an episode of South Park. You're not going to run the ball very effectively, even though they did have a few runs that broke a couple tackles. But I wasn't very worried about the run game today. Wilson in that passing attack, I thought. But I mean, hey, when you're dropping Trent Murphy and Mario Addison in the crossing lane, that's always a good idea, right?
Listen,
I always get worried about that. It works.
It worked. It worked. It worked.
Yeah, Richard Forbes comes in and says another third quarter sputter. They only have 3 points.
They've scored 2 touchdowns in the third quarter all year, and they come out with another field goal, which to me is just laying a goose egg. Like, you have an opportunity to put your foot on the throat of an opponent that you're already up on. Like, you got to get that home. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, you got to get that home.
And we're going to catch heat on this, Paul, because we talked about it during the game. We texted each other a little bit back and forth. Mm-hmm. The script of the offensive coordinator. And you know what? I sent a tweet out during the game. We're still waiting on confirmation. I believe Brian Dable switched from Chex Mix to almonds up in the booth. And I'm not sure if that's 110% correct. But we're waiting on confirmation.
Food. Yes. Brain food.
Got some few raisins in there. My point is this. His script was brilliant. I'll give him that. I'll give the devil his due. His script was amazing to start that game. He wanted to hit the cover 3 deep to get him out of that. Then after that, you could start hitting everything underneath. You could try to start hit those hook routes, those digs. You could start doing a bunch of different things. Not digs actually, but those dig routes.
Yeah, I knew what you meant.
But point being is this. Okay, I liked it. And then when the script was over, he had 3 points, and then he tried to get a little too cute at the goal line when Gabriel Davis stepped out of bounds. They had to settle for a field goal. That's the field goal of the third quarter, and then they just started to open it up because, Seattle started blitzing a lot, and they started playing man when they don't have the horses back there to play man. And it took him a few plays to be like, okay, I'm going to dial up a screen to Moss. But that didn't deter Seattle from blitzing. They kept blitzing on that same drive where it went from the third quarter to the fourth quarter. And until that throw to Brown, which, busted it wide open, they were blitzing every single down, and the routes that they had, I mean, for the most part, the line was doing very well picking up some of the blitzes that were in there.
Right, especially with the mishmash of offensive linemen that they ended up having to go a couple series with. Like, it was impressive. It really was impressive.
And I was disappointed that in that 11-play drive, they blitzed 7 times, and he only called 2 screens. But the rest of the play calls weren't quick hitters. You want to replace that. I just want to drop this on Hashtag Nation real quick. When a team's blitzing, and you identify who's blitzing, the wide receiver or the quarterback have to be on the same page as far as hot routes go, so you have to try to hit the zone that they're vacating. And they weren't doing that. They were running long routes. They were running 10-yard digs. They were running 12-yard comebacks. And I was like, he's holding on to the ball too long.
So those are coverage sacks, because it's actually coming up in the chat right now. So I'm glad that you're bringing it up.
Yes.
585 says pretty well 7 sacks, Mario. And who else said something else immediately after that?
Too many sacks from Pierre Martinez.
Too many sacks. But would you, out of those 7 sacks, I felt like a vast majority of them were coverage sacks.
I feel they were. I don't have the exact number, and obviously I'd have to watch the game. But in the moment, I'm like, in my head, as a quarterback, and you've watched games with me before all the time, Paul. I'm going, get rid of it, get rid of it, get rid of it, throw it away, do something. So I'd say 50%. I say 3 or 4 of those were probably covered sacks off the top of my head. But I'm like, get the ball out, get the ball out. And the reason why he probably couldn't get the ball is his read was late, or the play call had the development of the play and the receivers in the route took too long. So I won't know until I watch it, but because you only get half the screen when you're watching the game at home. So that's the tough part about it.
I think it'll be fun to go back and look at all those sacks and see how many did they bring 5 or more. They were going after Allen quite a bit.
He still had about 3 seconds to throw. Even it wasn't like a jailbreak. They were chipping and getting guys in there, and then that's when he started going a little bit to the more 2-back look, when they either had Knox back there with a back, or they had Gabriel Davis with a back, and they were chipping. So, it is going to be interesting to see.
Let's talk about, because the Bills were getting blitzed so often, we saw late in the game or late in the second half of the game, the Bills transitioned to throwing more screens. So I want to talk about the John Brown screen first.
Yes.
Because John Brown was being played 15 yards off. Yeah. Like, you just have a runway in front of you. Right. I mean, you saw it was the play call, right? Yes. Like that was the play call. They didn't check to anything. It wasn't Allen making a check at the line. That was the play call. It was great timing based off the look, right? Yeah. I'm really curious to see what the call would have been had they been up on Brown at the line, where they would have checked that to, right? Because they tried to screen at the goal line when obviously there was somebody right on top of him. That was a terrible failure. Brown was tackled for like a 2-yard loss. But the wide receiver screen to Brown was the perfect call at the perfect time. So I give Dable a lot of credit for that. But I was a little critical of Dable back with your back up against the end zone, calling the screen for Moss. I don't know, maybe I'm an island there, but you tell me what you thought of that play call, because I feel like we might be on opposite sides of the coin here.
I don't mind the play call in and of itself. They weren't completely backed up. Let's put it this way, because it's better than them bringing pressure and he's got to stand back there for 5 or 6 seconds trying to get the ball off of those long developing routes. So if you call a screen, it's either there or he throws it in the ground. I'm not worried about that. You know, I mean, that's a quick one. Plus, the fact that you called a screen puts the thought in the defense's head. Okay, whoa, you know, they didn't hit this, but they still, they were trying to do this. So maybe we should just, we can't go pin our ears back just yet and just go after this guy. Even though they started to do that at the middle of the third quarter and into the fourth quarter, and those are the adjustments that they started to make. And just want to go real quick to Breaking Tables Bills Talk. Thank you for the $5 donation. Best thing about this win is it brings back the Bills' confidence, especially on offense. By the way, we need a dome stadium. The worst. I don't want to be negative though, Paul, but the worst defense in the league you played. The worst pass defense in the league you played today.
Well, I think that was one of the reasons why. Yeah, I think that was one of the reasons why the Bills had no interest in running the football.
No.
Right?
No.
Why should you? Why do you have to?
No.
You don't have to. Right? But one of the reasons that they're so bad against the pass is because I will be honest with you. The Bills, even when they tried to run the football, nope.
I don't know why you try to run the football into a blitz, though.
Right.
They were blitzing a lot.
Right. Well, it's one of the reasons why they're so good against the run. Like, you look at Seattle's defense, and they're great against the run, but one of the reasons is because they're bringing pressure all day long, all day. And that was something that kind of bothered me a bit. What?
I'm sorry, Paul Berg, once again, coming in hot.
Dawkins sucks.
Not even a question. The last time he gave us $50, it was to fix your internet. It was beautiful. It was so, Big Spence saying I went full Yoda. I'm not really sure when I did that. I'm not sure. Just to let you guys know as well. I mean, just really quick, the super chats we're getting, those are also going to the Punt Foundation. I neglected to mention that to everybody. So all those super chats that you guys throw in, those are going to the Punt Foundation as well to the end of the year. So that's what we're doing. So yeah, Dirty Randy, money's well spent. Yeah, now it is. Yes, it is. Definitely. But yeah, the screen game, I'd like to see more of. I didn't mind that they didn't want to run the ball at all. I thought that the times that they did choose to run the ball were a little suspect. I mean, Daniel Garvey's even came in. He said Dable's best game by far calling. Once again, the worst pass defense in the league. You're playing against the worst pass defense in the league, and you got a safety that came back that can't cover. So,
Dunbar was bad today. He had a front row seat to every single touchdown. Every single touchdown. Dunbar was bad.
Oh my God. He led Seattle in tackles, which, hey, if you give up that many catches, you better have a few tackles.
Yeah, they should really classify the breakdown. The tackles are from behind. Like, there should be a separate from behind.
If you make a tackle past 10 yards of the line, it doesn't count.
If you had to chase him down, then clearly something went wrong. Like Teron Johnson on that David Moore touchdown. Oh, Teron Johnson's good in coverage. What? He just let David Moore run down, and all of a sudden was like, oh, Joe, my guy's 20 yards behind me. Let me run and try and catch him.
Nope.
Like, that David Moore touchdown was embarrassing. Like, Teron, what are you doing?
I'm not sure.
What are you doing?
That's so weird. Breaking Tables comes in once again. So we are a better passing offense this season. I still think that it has to do with the line. We need to continue to be pass heavy and score a lot for us to win. And that's, you're right, Breaking Tables. The fact is that the EP system is designed, the philosophy of it is pass to score, run to win. The second part of that, majority of games, you have to do that. You got to try to close out games. But obviously with the way that it was today, as bad as the secondary was for Seattle, the Buffalo Bills weren't going to do it. They were going to supplement those short passes to Beasley, those short passes inside to to Davis to supplement the run game. And they're like, listen, we're just going to keep just getting first downs on y'all. And I'm going to check the stats on the first downs while you go through that.
Sure. Yeah. I want to click over real quick and talk about the points they scored off those 4 turnovers, right? Because I think that really is one of the reasons why the Bills were able to keep it so close, and just kind of always be in charge. So your very first interception on Seattle's second possession, you kicked a field goal, right? It was 5 minutes later, right? So you did a good job of controlling the clock, but it is 11 plays, 54 yards, 5 minutes off the clock, you kick a field goal. All right, fine. So the very next turnover happens, a fumble in their first possession of the second quarter. The Bills go 6 plays, 19 yards, also a field goal, right? And that one kind of hurt a little bit, but at that point, Bills are up 27-10. So, okay. All right, that's fine.
Yeah.
We go through another interception, also again in the second quarter. That one was pretty easy. 1 play for 3 yards, and that was a touchdown.
That was the Allen run, yes.
Yep. And then finally, their last fumble, the Bills go 4 plays for 6 yards.
Field goal? Yeah.
Yeah.
So they scored.
I get it.
So they scored 20 points, right? Scored 20 points. Okay.
20 points off 4 turnovers, right? That's fine.
It's not hateful.
I get the field goal at the end because you're really just trying to run out the clock, right?
Yes.
So you really do kind of have to remove that from the equation, because if they score a touchdown there, that's sort of bonus, right? You're really just looking to run out clock. So you got to remove that one. So what would that be? 17. Oh, wait, no, 7, 10, 13 points off 3 turnovers. 13 points off.
Well, no, they didn't
turnovers.
score a touchdown on that last one, did they? Oh, they did score.
No, field
13.
goal.
All right. Oh, field goal.
Yeah,
so then it would be 17 off of 3 turnovers then.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
So, which isn't bad. I mean, just real quick, Dan Mitchell drops a 20 bagger and says, was I right or was I right?
Hey.
Let's go Buffalo. So, yes, he thought it was going to be a Madden type game. And
I guess Dan bet the over to throw us $20.
I think
is
he
that,
did.
Is that the idea? Did you bet the over?
It's a wash because I joined his Patreon. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding. But you know what though? To me, and you know how I am, Paul. The front 4 being able to push the pocket the way that they did, I was very excited about. And on the flip side of the ball, you have a guard go down, you have another guard go down. At one point, it was Feliciano, Bottinger, Bates, you know, and then Williams went out. He had Nasecki next to Bates for a little while. So,
yeah, it got to a point where, the Bills offensive line coach, Bobby Johnson's looking at the equipment manager going, okay, so how big is this guy? Or size him up real quick.
He put on a helmet himself. But I can't get away from the fact that the calming presence on that offensive line had to be Feliciano, because he was the only guy that was still there besides Dawkins. And that's what I think was great. That's what I think was great about it. So he definitely proved to you how invaluable he is to this team. As far as from a center standpoint, he directs the traffic up there. He was able to make all the line calls, all the slides, all the adjustments for the protections. And Allen was relatively clean all day. Obviously, he hit 7 sacks. Well, like we said, we talked about it a little bit earlier with the coverage sacks. There were some times that Allen was holding on to the ball too long. I don't know if that was by play design or it was by just the coverage sack. That could happen. Broken watches right twice a day. They could have had a few coverage sacks.
But I mean, everything is blowing up right now in the chat talking about Mongo, and what a worker he is, man. Like that is a guy who clearly loves the game of football, but loves to love the game of football, right? Like somebody that completely understands every role across that offensive line. Because remember, that's what he was brought in here to do.
Exactly.
He was brought in here to be able to play almost any position and to be able to translate for everybody what their role and responsibility is. One of the reasons that Mongo moves to center when Morris is out is not because he's the best center on the team, because honestly, I'd rather have Bates at center if we're just going to be real about it.
Yeah, as far as from a strength matchup, yes.
Right, exactly. It's because Feliciano simply just controls that line. If you lose Morris, Feliciano takes over, and that line doesn't skip a beat because of his understanding of responsibility across the line. Right? That's it.
I mean, because for me, and I mentioned this before, I mentioned it last week on the post game, the combination of Bates and Feliciano, I think works better than Feliciano and Boddicker. I could be saying his name wrong because that's just how I feel. I like the way it is. So breaking tables, Bills Talk comes in. Don't forget, we actually had a TD that the refs missed. No challenge on it. Do you think
that's
that will continue?
True? Yeah, the Gabe Davis touchdown in the back. Yeah.
Wow, we had a Klein sighting. That was a 1990s hit that he put on Wilson and took the ball from him. That was amazing. I mean, I think that made
that
up
was great.
for the suspect calls that went on during the game, and like the roughing the passer calls. That was
the one to Wilson that they called on Oliver. I mean, Wilson ducked down. Like, I get you can't bring your arms up on a QB. I get it, right? I get it, but I didn't like that call. I thought that was a little ticky tack. You know, that's me, and I'm not trying to defend Ed Oliver, right? I thought Ed Oliver played a great game today. Quiet, right? If you look at the stat sheet, ultimately a very quiet game for Ed Oliver. He, I don't even know if he registered a tackle, to be honest with you. No tackles for Ed Oliver today. But I saw him eating bodies, and I saw him on the end. I saw him play defensive end today, Mario.
But
shocker.
He did the job that he was supposed to do because Edmonds had 11 tackles.
Exactly.
That
he was
is
eating
exactly
bodies.
why. Yeah.
He was eating bodies. It wasn't a clean game for him. It was a dirty game. And I loved watching Ed Oliver today. Again, doesn't show up on the stat sheet, but they were able to move him around on the line. They weren't able to just put one guy on him.
No.
He was demanding attention, and he was pushing the pocket backwards.
Yes.
And he made things uncomfortable for Wilson. Again, it's something that when you go back and watch the film, you're going to say, damn, Ed Oliver played one hell of a football game today. And I hope other people recognize it. I thought this was one of Oliver's best games this season, if not his best game all season.
I could not. I'm just thinking about it right now, Paul, because Klein's name's coming up a bunch in the chat. You mentioned it at the onset of the episode. He had a very Lorenzo Alexander type game where you didn't ask him to cover anybody.
Nope.
You didn't ask him to. You asked him to put his hand in the dirt and go forward.
Yep.
That's he's the.
That's it.
So what makes him different than Jamal Adams at this point?
A lot of talent. We'll start there.
No, but it's funny to see that like this. He wasn't. You didn't see him miss tackles on a lot of runs because they weren't running the ball very much. You didn't ask him to drop back in coverage and try to go stand underneath a wide receiver or Lockett or anything like that. Even though he was running down the sideline with Lockett the one time, which terrified me. But those were few and far between, and he was just basically saying, "Listen, get to the quarterback now."
Yeah, his responsibility was a lot simpler, right? They asked him to go out and really just play one-on-one. You know, go get the quarterback. That's what we want you to do today. We're going to use you in blitz packages. And he blitzed probably about at least 50% of the time that he was on the field. And what the times that he dropped into coverage, there were some gaffes, right? Like when you see him chasing Lockett down the sideline, you're like, well, wonder how that happened, right? Like it's that kind of stuff happens when you play zone coverage sometimes, right? Where a linebacker is just going to end up chasing somebody you don't want him to. But the fact of the matter is this was his most effective game as a Bill. And Blessed One does call out. He missed some plays today. Like he left plays out on the grass. He absolutely did. But the positive plays were outweighing the negative plays today. And it's the first time as a Bill that I can say that for him. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he definitely, I can't stop laughing about it because you're like, he's playing like his job's on the line. Wait, who are all these guys, the new guys in the linebacker room?
Yeah. Wow.
What's going on here?
Well, I do want to point out, I sent out a tweet. It made me chuckle. Who had for the Bills' first 2 touchdowns, Isaiah McKenzie and Tyler Kroft on their Apocalypse 2020 bingo? Like, who had that one? Because
I'm sure probably Seattle did because they were trying everything to take away the big three, the Beasley, Brown, and Diggs. They were trying as much as they could. So usually when McKenzie's running that route on a cover 2, it's a clearing route.
Yeah.
Which means is that he's running straight to occupy a safety so somebody can come in underneath him. But it was a cover 3. And he said, listen, if this goes into cover 3, he's going to cross that safety's face. He's going to be open.
Well, and Mar, let's call it what it is.
Yeah.
McKenzie and Kroft were not the hot routes there. They were not the primary read.
No.
Allen had some time. He worked through his reads. And honestly, the fact that they really go only one safety majority of the time, the seam was exposed today, right? Because they were bringing so much pressure. So if you were going to do damage early in the game, McKenzie up the seam made a lot of sense. Kroft up the seam made a lot of sense. And that's where they were able to do their damage early in the game and get some space because it was pretty open there. And you saw that throughout the course of the first half of the game. Allen would, work through his progressions and then find somebody sitting 5 yards in front of a defensive back. It was wild to see.
Well, I mean, you had to think the Buffalo Bills went into this game saying, "Listen, Jamal Adams is back. He can wreak havoc down in. If we want to even try to run, we got to try to get him out of the box. If we want to try to pass, he's going to blitz. In order to give Allen time with the banged up line that we have to try to give him some time. We got to try to get him out of the box by simply going down the seam and throwing that touchdown to McKenzie down the middle. You're effectively getting him out of the box. He was out of the box for like a quarter. Like
right.
he was down there a little bit, like sparingly, but then the Seahawks were like, "Listen, he can't cover anybody. What are we going to do with him? Let's try to make some use out of him, have him blitz." And then what I thought was great by the Buffalo Bills is when they did run, the few times that they did run, you had Bobby Wagner, who's over 30, going sideline to sideline trying to catch whoever he's trying to get, which I thought was a brilliant move by them because that is your second stud on that defense. He's the number one guy, but with him and Adams, the Buffalo Bills know when they play a stud linebacker and Jamal Adams, Google the Jets game at the beginning of the year last year. What happened to them when they played Mosley and Adams was they ran into a little bit of tough going. But now you add Diggs, you start to see, listen, okay, this is when a team has a stud linebacker and a stud safety in Adams, this is what we have to do. Then we got to try to get him out of the box, number one. After we get him out of the box, other things will open up for us. Other things did open up. Allen was able to pepper the ball all over the field. He was. I even liked how he threw on the run. He just seemed poised and relaxed even when he was on the run. He doesn't look like a quarterback that's just running to run anymore. No, he doesn't want to run. I don't think.
I will give Brian Dable a lot of credit for that, for the touchdown pass to Gabe Davis, because that was a real complex look. And we've seen the Bills run that jet sweep down in goal line situations before, right? But you bring McKenzie back I think it was McKenzie back on the jet. You fake the jet. Allen tucks it like it's going to go, like he's going to go. And as soon as the linebacker steps up, he knows over the top Gabe is going to beat it on the crosser. Right. He knows Gabe is going to get inside leverage there and he's going to beat it on the crosser. And I got to give Dable a lot of credit. It's a very creative call, right? You have three options there. And there's not many quarterbacks in the league that can make that throw, because not only are you asking Allen to read not going with the jet, he goes to tuck, sees the linebacker step up, and then completely flat-footed takes the ball from tuck and is able to throw a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful pass to Gabe Davis, really just a step ahead of the defender. Like, there's not many quarterbacks in the league that can make that throw. I got to be honest with you. I know it's not that impressive looking a throw, but he had no space to do that and no time to do it, and his arm is so damn strong. It wasn't an issue.
I'd say Mahomes and Rodgers are the only two that come to mind.
That's what I mean. There's not many.
But there's not many. You're not threatened by those guys running. Like, even though those guys can move and they can maneuver in the pocket and stuff like that, I'm not afraid of those guys running at all. So that's what made the play so effective. And that could have been one of those things where if it got knocked down, we would literally be sitting here saying, why is he getting too cute with this? Like, what are you doing? But he knows his quarterback, and it's starting to evolve. And the fact that it's evolving where he's saying, listen, I know how tough it is to try to score in here, because most of our routes are longer developing routes and things that are going on. So when we get down inside the 20, it's been getting a little bit difficult. Josh is great with the ball inside the red zone. However, scoring chances are few and far between because you don't have all that room to work with, and it's really tough. So that all intertwined, I do commend him on that. That was a really, really nice play call. But some of the other play calls that were going on, and there weren't a lot. Believe me, there weren't a lot. I don't expect him to call a perfect game, but I expect that when you have a turnover and the team's down, you have to try to capitalize on that turnover. Now, they scored on every single turnover, so we can't really fault them too much. But then again, it all circles back to this was a horrible, horrible pass defense that they were playing. Like Heward even said it during the game. He said, this is like a 7-on-7 game for Allen. It's not even a contest.
Right.
So I don't know if we may not see a game like this for a while, because they're not going to play teams that have horrible secondaries like this for the rest of the year.
Well, I do want to point out that, we mentioned Singletary early in the game. And I realize now that I probably wasn't very fair to Devin Singletary. Singletary played a lot this game. And while Moss got the vast majority of the rushing attempts, Singletary was in there so often because of the need to be there to pick up a blitz, right? And we saw him, I think it was Adams blitzed up the A, and Singletary just got caught up in the wash and didn't get over there, right? That wasn't the story for most of the day. I understand that there were 7 sacks, but they were bringing a lot of guys. Singletary, to me, is not your most ideal back to pick up a blitz. There was some concern over him coming into the season that it wasn't a great strength of his, but I don't think Moss categorizes any better. But he didn't have TJ Yeldon today either. He was inactive. So you kind of had to run with, what you had. And I thought Singletary, for what was asked of him, was okay. Right. And really, when you start unpacking where this team wants to go, is Singletary your best option in a pass happy offense? The answer to that is no. Moss is a better receiver. Right. So at some point, you're going to see Moss get more of those not third down, but more of those passing situation back duties where he's going to be asked to pick up a blitz. It's just going to happen because Moss is just a better receiver. It's just the way that it is. So Singletary run production, probably one of his worst games as a Bill. Pass protection, it wasn't all that great either. And I really think this is the type of game that you start seeing more transition to Zach Moss, because if the Bills are going to be throwing 40 times a game, I'm not willing to give Singletary that many opportunities to get caught up in the wash again, or to just put hands on somebody and still have him get around. Like, it just wasn't a great day from a pass pro perspective for him. I'd like to see Moss and a little bit more of that duty just to see what's there. But that's my take on that.
Yeah, we preempted that at the beginning of the season that eventually perhaps that could have happened with the fact that Moss would usurp Singletary, and the one advantage you think was that Singletary had was he was in the system for a year. He seems to have a little bit better hands than Moss, but then you saw Moss starting to, he caught that screen. He seems to be really starting to be more comfortable out there the more that he plays. Mm-hmm. So that could definitely be something down the line. But you have 2 backs now that you're not going to get. The worry was, coming into the season when you have a 1-back system is that the guy's going to get gassed by December. He's not going to be as effective. So a lot of teams started going to 2-back systems. Even though one guy would be the lead guy, they would always spell him third downs or something like that. Right. And they used to have it. But now you have 2 guys who I believe are equally effective when they're in there. I mean, Singletary can pick up the blitz. He didn't have a great day today doing it, but he can. Right. I don't think they saw a team that's going to blitz as much as they did like they did today. That was insane right now. Right. During that third and fourth quarter, how much they decided to blitz Allen. People were talking about the announcers in the chat, and I was like, I hate Aikman. I was like, well, he's had like 34 concussions. Like,
it's like having Eric Lindros as your commentator. So Buffalo Mafia News said Allen has now beat Wilson, Stafford, Dak, and more. I guess the next question is, will the Bills defense be able to contain Kyler Murray, right? Who's kind of Russell Wilson light, right?
Light,
like
yes.
That's kind of where you
faster.
are. He is faster, but it doesn't progress. He doesn't go through progressions. Doesn't control the offense the way that Wilson does, right? No. So, are some of these blitz concepts that we saw against Seattle something that you would do against Murray, or are you a little bit tentative because that he's a little bit more dangerous outside of that pocket if he's able to step forward into that blitz and kind of get around that? So, do we see some of those concepts against Arizona next week?
I think we could see a couple of them. Definitely filter into next week. But like I said, whereas Wilson is known and the book's on him that when he eludes the rush, he's always looking to pass. His eyes are always downfield. So you want to have more guys in coverage because he's able to make plays outside of the pocket just as inside of the pocket. So the Buffalo Bills were really, really conscious that, except for that one blown coverage that they had on the touchdown, they're really conscious of getting deep. If Wilson starts to scramble, just give up. If something comes up short, then he's going to hit it short. That's fine. Just do not give up a deep ball. With Murray being as young as he is, he's going to look to run a few more times than Wilson would, even though his eyes will be downfield as well. So I think what you're going to have to do is you may have to take a guy out of coverage, or if you blitz, you have to be extremely disciplined in your blitz package and stay in your lanes as to not give him a free rein. Because, like you said, and we've said many times on the show, if you're going to blitz, you got to play man behind it. If you're playing man behind it, your back is to Kyler Murray. That's a very, very dangerous situation to be in. However, why I don't think they're going to completely replicate the defensive game plan from today is because Drake's coming back. Is Drake coming back? I mean, you have running backs that are formidable in Arizona.
Yeah, if Chase Edmonds is one hell of a player, dude. Chase Edmonds honestly should be their number one running back. He is a dangerous player. Like, he is dangerous. I like Chase Edmonds more than I like Kenyon Drake, like significantly more. He's a dangerous running back. And I think that's kind of where, Buffalo, looking at this matchup right now from what happened today, going what's going to happen against Arizona. Arizona's definitely stronger in the running back department, because here we saw an Alex Collins who I'm not even sure has played in the last 12 months.
Nope. I don't think he has either.
Travis Homer, who literally nobody knew of prior to this game, and DJ Dallas, who nobody heard of prior to a week ago, right? Yeah. Like, these are not guys that you're thrilled to see, especially when your normal starting running back group is former first-round pick Rashad Penny, Carlos Hyde, who's admittedly at this point, he's played in the NFL long enough. You could honestly start talking about him in the Hall of Fame conversation just from longevity, which is a terrifying thought to me. And Chris Carson, who's one of the most dynamic and complete backs in the NFL. None of those guys were available today.
Nope.
So you're just trolling out what you could find. And that really hurt their offense, right? And if you were ever going to do something against the Bills, it was you wanted to run against the Bills. But the Bills didn't fear the running game. So they said, we're just going to put a bunch of pressure on you. Let's see what's up. Yeah. Let's see what happens.
Let's give Arizona something to think about next week as far as what some of the blitz packages that we're going to put together for a mobile quarterback who could sprinkle the ball over the field. So,
right.
But the problem is the wide receiver core for Arizona, I believe, is a lot better than what they faced today, even though Metcalf is a freak in and of himself. I love Lockett. I like Moore. And Metcalf is unbelievable. But you're talking about Hopkins, Fitzgerald, Kirk. I mentioned Fitzgerald, but wait, go ahead. I
mean, he's like 87 years old.
I understand he's 97 years old. It's fine. The guy's always on 1-year deals. But he's still a guy that you're going to have to account for. Like, to me, he's the equivalent of Beasley. And the reason why I say Beasley, I'm not comparing their skill sets. What I'm saying is, if you try to put all your manpower on Diggs and Brown and you forget about Beasley, meanwhile, you're giving up 27 first downs. That's what's going to happen to your team if you try to do that. So if you try to delegate all of your resources to Kirk and Hopkins, then Fitzgerald will have 8 catches for 94 yards, and he'll have like 7 first down catches. You know what I mean? That's the thing that's going to kill you.
I want to talk just real quickly today about the defensive looks that we saw. Can I just tell you how much happier I am with Jordan Poyer's level of play when Dean Marlowe or Ciaran Neal is on the field? Can I tell you how much I like Jordan Poyer more when those guys are on the field? Because they're taking that role of Poyer being down. Poyer's so much dangerous when he's back.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I know we like Poyer down, but I like that as, like, we're going to do this. We're going to give this look 8 times a game. Like, okay, personnel comes out and you're like, okay, well, they're running a specific look, and then Poyer drops down to give a different look pre-snap. I'm down with that. I don't like Poyer down all game like we had to see at the beginning of the season. I really like Poyer more when you have Marlowe or Ciaran Neal on the field, because you're asking Poyer to step back, and that's where he's dangerous, right? Yeah. Is when you allow him to read the field. So with that being said, comparing today what we saw from the Bills defense between Neal and Marlowe, who I think played a great game. And we talk about AJ Klein and AJ Klein being really effective, probably because those Ciaran Neal and D Marlowe was so effective today, on the backside of Klein.
Yeah, you weren't asking him to do much. That's why.
Right. Exactly. So how does that translate to Arizona? Right. Like, how does that help or hurt you? Right. What you saw today, is that going to make a difference in the Arizona game?
I think it could, because now that's something that prior to today, Arizona really didn't have to game plan for. They weren't going to be worried about AJ Klein. So now what you could do is you could send 5, and then you can have Tremaine Edmonds in the middle as a spy for, taking away that middle route, the underneath route, and you can have him spy Murray. And I feel that he has the speed to get Murray. I don't think he's going to catch him from behind in a foot race, but sideline to sideline, taking angles the way he could take angles, I think that's one of the things that he could do for next week. Buffalo Mafia News says, is Cody Ford at Oliver a bust? I think it's it's too early for that. I think it's really too early for that kind of assessment. Stefan said, spread that Poyer love. Did you see, and I'll get back to the point in a second, did you see someone tweeted at Rachel Bush today and said, if he plays a game like this, do you have anything special for him when he gets home? And she goes, we already did that this morning. She responded to the tweet. I thought that was amazing. That was so funny. But as far as AJ Klein goes, it definitely gives Arizona something else to they have to plan for now. Okay, if they're going to send 5, they're going to send Klein. Okay, or they might send Teron Johnson on the other side and drop Klein out. And those are two of the things that Murray has to be conscious of. But he has D-Hop and Fitzgerald in there, kind of like those guys have seen everything so far in this league. So they're going to be the guys that he leans on as far as, listen, if I'm on Klein's side and he's coming, I'm going to give you a hot route. And I think it'll be a little bit more effective than like a DJ Moore saying, well, was I supposed to run the hot route? Was I supposed to be here? Was I supposed to be there? So, I mean, someone put it in the Ultimate Guitar Wizard. What?
No, go ahead.
Ultimate Guitar Wizard. He said that where is it? Trey on D-Hop again. Great rivalry. I think that's I don't know if they're going to move him around to be specific with him. I mean, if they're moving him around just to specifically go on to Hopkins and put Trey on Hopkins, the Bills are in a lot of man, which means they're going to be sending a lot more pressure. So if that is the case, I'm fine with that.
I just don't like Levi Wallace in man coverage, right? If Dane Jackson still knows how to spell his name after getting his clock cleaned by Micah Hyde, then great, then I'm fine. But Dane Jackson's also, this was the last game that you could call him up from the practice squad without subjecting him to waivers to put him back down. So you either got to sign him to this roster moving forward, or so that's why I'm thinking you might see somebody go on IR soon, right, to clean up that roster spot so they could sign him up to the roster. I don't think they're going to be letting anybody go. I don't see them, putting Delshon Phillips down because, Milano missed the game. Now you're lighting the linebacker room, like this was the game that AJ Klein had to step up, because if he didn't, that job was not going to be his moving forward. Like, that's just the fact. They were going to figure something else out, because they have to. Milano's on the IR. Granted, you got the Arizona game coming up. He'll be on IR when they're on the bye week, and then he returns back. But important point of note, Ben Roethlisberger
hurt his knee.
Might be done. That's a bad one.
They're talking about done? He's just not out for the game? What? He was having a heck of a year, too.
Done. Yeah, it's bad.
Put Bojo on IR. We ain't punting from here on out.
Yeah, Bojo's been sick this season. Like a field flipping punter.
He is.
So I was so frustrated with him last year, and I guess that's part of why sometimes patience with this coaching staff pays off, where I was so frustrated with his 27-yard out-of-bound punts last year. You could see that they saw something. And the same thing with Tyler Bass. They're literally going to give him as much time as he needs to really tap into what he's capable of doing. So, it's an interesting one. Bojo. It's an interesting story of success.
So what do you put that on as far as the coaching staff? I mean, if they do have to call up Dane Jackson, if they want to go more with a dime look than a nickel look, where you're substituting a Dean Marlowe and a Ciaran Neal in there, as well as having Dane Jackson out there, and you're deep in the secondary. You really are deep, and we're not even talking about even Norman coming back. I mean, you're deep in the secondary. Could Edmonds realistically, let's say you wanted to put Marlowe and Neal next to him, do you think that could be a formidable recipe going forward?
I mean, against Arizona, I think that's a very effective look.
Okay, because Marlowe and Neal, they're not shy about hitting either. Like, they love getting in somebody's face. So
yeah, sure do.
I'm not mad at it. You know what I mean? You want to put Poyer and Hyde up top. You want to put Jackson and Trey as your two corners, and you want to bring in Ciaran Neal and Dean Marlowe to flank Edmonds and have him as the only linebacker. Then you're preparing to face a pass-heavy team with safeties that want to hit, that want to come down in the box. So it's going to be interesting to see.
Caden asks, is Miami losing yet? Actually, Miami's up 21-17 against Arizona.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. If you guys want to see the Big Ben injury, I just retweeted it on our Twitter handle, #Sports. I can't play during the post game because we'll get demonetized, so we can't do that.
Yep.
But it's bad.
It is really bad. Oh,
It's bad.
Like we're talking.
It's bad. It's bad. It's not gruesome, right? Not gruesome, but it's bad.
It's not Joe Theismann.
Thank you for pronouncing that correctly. Thank you for your history, for that history lesson. It is not Theismann. He changed the pronunciation of his name when he was a senior in college because he wanted to win the Heisman. So he had everybody pronounce his name as Theismann. It is not Theismann. It's Theismann.
It's definitely Theismann. Look at Paul Burke, outside knee. Alex Smith bad. Zach Prescott bad. Retirement bad.
No. It's not that level, but it's like Fred Jackson bad, right? Remember when Freddie tore his MCL? It's Fred Jackson bad.
No, but the chat sounded like Super Troopers for a second when he goes, play soap, decorative soap? What kind of soap?
Cream? Who wants cream?
No cream. Okay.
No cream.
Moving forward, because we got about 10 minutes left in this episode, and we're going to have some episodes for you guys this week as well. And after the Arizona game, just want to let you guys know that hashtag is getting back in the car.
Yeah,
we are back in the car for the bye week. It
happens every year, guys.
Yep,
every year we look forward to the bye week.
We are going to be lighting up 5 episodes that week. So we are going to put out on the community tab a rapid fire post. So any questions that you want answered or you have about this team or about what's going on forward or even for us, you could just put them in the community tab. After we put it in there, we're going to rapid fire 5 episodes off that week. So you guys let us know. Obviously, some of them episodes may be time sensitive, so we'll have to release them. But like I said, if you're a channel member, you get an early release of all the episodes that we post. So make sure that you do that because 100% of all the proceeds will be going to the Punt Foundation for pediatric cancer, children with pediatric cancer. So that being said, Paul, which is the great segue. Looking to Arizona.
Yeah.
As we've been talking about them for a little bit, obviously I'm worried about Fitzgerald a little bit more than you are. Hopkins always terrifies me because I thought he was one of the best wide receivers. I still think he's one of the best wide receivers in the league.
Just as long as Trey is okay. Don't like that. Don't like the pirate impression he was doing on the sidelines, hopping to the bench. Don't like that. But we'll see, right? If Trey is here's why I don't like it, right? Trey's been dealing with back injuries like the entire season, and that was not a back injury.
No,
right?
No, it was something that he was. When you have an injury and you try to manufacture and get through the injury, but you hurt something else in the process because you're moving at a different pace or that. It's just like that. Like if you hurt your right ankle and you're always walking on your left leg, it's going to sore. Your left leg's going to sore. Something's going to happen. So. Cankle the feed. I
was chumming the waters for Tim Ellington, calling it a pirate impression because I knew as soon as I said the word pirate, Ellington would pop out of nowhere. Like, did you say pirate?
Piece of candy? What? But it's great. I think that with parts of the defensive game plan that went into today. Now, as far as the offensive game plan, you're going up against Jordan Phillips, who's going to be motivated in this game. And they do have a formidable defense over there in Arizona. Matchups are gonna lead the way. I mean, if those double A gap blitzes were working against Allen today, you best believe that Arizona's going to dial up some of them, and obviously we'll have some bold predictions out this week about that.
Sure.
Right.
Oh yeah.
But are you more worried about? Were you more worried about Seattle, or are you more worried about Arizona? Because you had Arizona picked to win that division this year.
Sure do. Yep. Sure do. I mean, I did not expect the Bills to win the game today. I'm just going to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Even with the running back situation for Seattle the way that it was, I didn't expect the Bills to jump out to the lead that they did. Right. Like I figured Bills would be strong in the first quarter, but I didn't expect them to be able to hold off Russell Wilson. I mean, sorry, I say hold off. They scored 34 points today. So I say hold off respectively. Yeah, I say hold off respectfully. But generating 4 turnovers, that's the reason why they won this football game. Like it wasn't that the Bills outscored Seattle. It's the Bills had more opportunities to outscore Seattle.
That's true.
And defense showed up. Are you going to be able to generate 4 turnovers against Arizona? Don't think so. I'm more worried about Chase Edmonds than I was DK Metcalf. Does that make more sense? Like, I'm more worried about their running back group in Arizona. I'm not worried about D-Hop. I'm really not.
Really?
I'm not worried about D-Hop. Chase Edmonds scares the hell out of me.
He does. He scares me too. And
scares the hell out of me as a player.
You gotta realize too, if you're, and here's the deal. This is what probably will tip 5 sacks. Yeah. This will tip off teams that are going to play the Bills. First of all, if you want to get in a scoring shootout with them, that's something that you probably don't want to do. They had 44 points while generating 4 extra turnovers. That's one. 2 is the more that you pass, the more you're putting the ball in harm's way. He threw the ball 41 times today, threw 2 picks, and fumbled twice. So I don't see Kyler Murray doing that. I don't see him putting the ball. He may put the ball in harm's way as far as picks go, but as far as running the ball, he's pretty secure. So yeah, it's difficult because Seattle, as we just said, they turned the ball over 4 times and he still threw for 400 yards. Usually that doesn't happen. It's because the opposing team usually is going to be able to run the ball near the end of the game, and that's what the Bills just decided not to do.
Right.
So 44 points, having 4 turnovers, barely winning by, just winning by 10. But someone said in the chat a little bit earlier, I think it might have been Big Spence, and said, listen, that didn't seem like a 10-point game. It seems like they took Seattle to the woodshed.
Right.
And they just tired that defense out. They just peppering them all up and down the field. So I'm interested to see if they win the turnover battle once again, which is it's the most obvious statement you can make in a game next to, hey, if you give this guy time, he'll kill you. He's an NFL quarterback. You give anybody time.
Of course he will. Yeah, of course he will.
So I'm really interested to see how they decide to come out in that Arizona game next week. I'm very interested.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree completely. I think there's a lot of great things that came out of this game that we're going to walk into a really exciting Bills victory Monday, right? Because you're going to look around the league and you're going to say, damn, the Bills are 7-2. Like, and you start looking down the road now and you're like, okay, when the Bills win the division, like that's the conversation now. You're looking behind you at Miami. If Miami beats Arizona, that's a big deal. Like, once you get off this stream, you should be paying attention to the Miami-Arizona game, because Arizona is going to give you a lot of the answers to the test for how they're going to attack Buffalo, right? Because, again, mobile quarterback, although left-handed, mobile quarterback, their running backs aren't phenomenal. They're kind of piecing it together down there right now in Miami. But I think Arizona is going to attack the Bills' defense the same way that they attack Miami's defense, right? I think it's going to be a very similar thing. But you really got to watch behind you for Miami. And I cannot believe that in 2020, it really must be 2020 to say the Dolphins are on the Bills' heels. Like, what a year.
The apocalypse is here. What I like about this current Buffalo Bills team, is especially going into Arizona, is this. You look at the 5-2 Bills. There's a book on them. There's a book on how to beat them. There's a book on what they're going to do. Now you look at the 7-2 Bills. Over the last 2 games, they showed you 2 completely different phases of their offense and how they're able to run their offense. Hey, we got a team with a very weak run defense. We're going to run the ball 40 times. Allen had 18 attempts and 11 completions. Allen had 11 completions by, 12 minutes left in the first quarter today.
Right.
So that being said, it gets teams to like examine, what are our weaknesses that this team's going to try to take advantage of, and what are they going to come in and try to do? Because we've seen them be effective and run the ball. We've seen them be effective and throw 40 times for 400 yards. What's going to happen? So it definitely gives teams on the Buffalo Bills radar. Being 7-2 should put them on anybody's radar, but the way that they've won the last 2 games especially should have teams go, listen, what are they going to do when they come into our house? We have to we got to self-reflect and see what we're weak at. And that takes away from their time, from what they're strong at. So I can't wait to see that, and I'm very excited to see that. So, but I think we've come to that time, Paul. We've come to that time.
Yeah, it does sound like that. It does sound like that.
It does. Like I said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us here at #Sports. We're trending now and trending later. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at #Sports. We are simulcasting right now on YouTube and Sportscaster, so you can go over there down in the description. We're also on iTunes and Spotify if you want to download the episode afterward. Also, most importantly, our channel memberships. If you are a channel member from now until the end of the year, we're donating 100% of all of our channel memberships to the Punt Foundation, Brian Moorman's Foundation for Children with Pediatric Cancer. We cannot thank you enough. We raised $160 for October for the foundation. We're putting that on top of the pot. For those of you that were a part of the giveaways that we had in the last 4 games last year, we'll try to do something. Obviously, pandemic.
Getting autographed merch is tough right now. Like it's last year, we went and got all that stuff signed.
Yeah, but
now
that's what I was going to
really
say.
tough.
With the pandemic, it's going to be a little bit tough. But we'll see if we can do something like that. But you guys remember the 2,000 that we had from last year? We're going to put all this stuff, all the donations on top of that, and we're going to be donating that to the Punt Foundation. We could not be happier that you guys made that happen. Everyone in the #Heroes made that happen and did the super chat. So
yeah, we're looking at January for that, right?
Yep,
So
yes.
like the second, third week in January, we'll be down at the Punt Foundation headquarters to hand over all that. So
Absolutely.
we're really excited about
rocking
that.
Rocking the #masks. That's what we're going to be doing.
That's it. That's what we're going to be doing.
But thank you guys for joining us tonight. #Heroes and #Nation. You guys are the best. And we got to go film some episodes for y'all this week. All right? So you enjoy the Buffalo Bills Victory Monday. We're out of here.